Can you hear me? Hello? This one? Okay. And now? Yes, can you hear me? Good. Hi. Good morning. Nice to see you all here. And I suppose a few more will come later, but looking forward for this session with you. So I will do the first session this morning, and then I will do the last before the ideathon, in which we will do an exercise about responsible AI. I've been working in AI for a long time, longer than any of you is born. I developed my first AI system in 1986. Well, that's long ago, 40 years ago it will be, my goodness. And since then I worked in, first in industry, so I developed AI systems long before AI was fashionable or was looking what you see AI to look today. And I moved to do to academia in the beginning of the year 2000. In all this time, so in 40 years' time, I have seen many different types of AI, many different approaches to AI, many different understandings of what AI is or what AI is not. But what has been a constant in all this time is that AI has an impact on the world, has an impact on people, and that impact is not always what we, as the developers, the engineers, the programmers, really think about it. Actually, if I'm right or if I'm honest, as engineers, as programmers and developers of this type of systems, we don't really tend to think about what will be the consequence of what we do. We know how to check for accuracy, we know how to prove or look at the quality of the code that we do from a technical and computing perspective, but we don't really know much about understanding how people really use these systems and how these systems affect society and each person individually. And that's what responsible AI is about. And it's not, and today, I don't know what other sessions has been, but today will be definitely not a technical session because it's exactly about that. It's bringing all of you, and who of you are computer science, data science students? Who are humanities students? One, maybe two, a couple there. Who are social science students? One there. Okay, good. So at least we have a little bit of everything. But as technology students, as STEM students, we are not really often brought to think about the impact of what we do. And it starts with questions. What exactly is AI doing? And AI today is very different of what AI was 40 years ago. But if anything, it has an even bigger impact because since a couple of years and since mostly when OpenAI made ChatGPT available to the whole world, what we have seen is that AI is really something that everybody can use and everybody is using, even without really understanding what AI as a science or a field of study is. So we need to start asking ourselves, how is this interaction between us, between people, and between systems? Is it about who is doing what? Is AI shaping the way we are working, the way we live, the way we interacting, or are we the ones who are shaping what AI is about? AI is raising as many concerns as it solves. We should not think of AI about something that is going to replace humans, and I'm sure that Frank will talk about this much more later. But we do need to understand the ethical, the societal, and all the unintended consequences. All these issues that no one really thought about, no one really expected, but which are happening. At the same time, we are also led to believe that to build AI, we need to do more. We need more data. We need more computer power. We need bigger and more powerful algorithms. And if we don't have more data, and if you don't have a lot of data, we are not really doing AI as we are believing that it should be doing this nowadays. But let's think about what really does this mean. For instance, if we talk about data availability and the more data that we are led to believe that we need to build AI systems, this is the world that we are showing to AI systems. It's definitely not the world as we expect it to be, the world we know it to be, but it's the data that we have about the world. And this is an image that was created by the Mozilla Internet Foundation. It was reported in their annual report in 2021 or 2022, I'm not really sure, I can check that. And if anything, today, the distortion of the world is even bigger than what this image is showing. It is also important to remember that this data that we are showing there, the data that is available to train AI systems, 50% of all that data is in the hands or under control of 12 organizations. None of them is in Nepal, none of them is in India, one of them is in Asia, one of them is in Europe, and the rest is in North America. So that's how the world that AI sees is about. It's not the world we live on, and this is how we are shaping AI. And the more distortion we make in this world, the less we are representing ourselves in the AI that is being used. And to do all this, take care of all this growing huge amount of data that we believe to need to build AI systems, we need a lot of computational power. And fortunately, and I've been talking about this for many, many years, more than 10 years now. At the beginning, I was warning people, this is using a lot of energy. It was kind of not really believed. Nowadays, we all know how much energy is needed to get data centers to work, to get computing and computation centers to run. So the amount of energy is something that we are aware of it. We are not really doing much about it yet. I come from the Netherlands. I'm now living in Sweden, but we come from the Netherlands. And at this moment in the Netherlands, there are huge discussions about, are we going to build a new neighborhood for people to live in, or are we going to build a data center? We don't have the energy capacity to do both. The country is small. There is limited amount of space and limited amount of energy and electricity available. So those choices need to be made. And who is going to decide about this? Do we need a neighborhood or do we need a data center? At this moment in some of the cities in the Netherlands, choices have been made to build data centers and not neighborhoods. These are political choices. They are not technological choices. It's not something which, as a computer scientist, we can do much, but are the choices that we are forcing ourselves to make because of the belief that we have and the systems and infrastructure that we have created for AI that requires all this energy. It's not just about energy. It's also about, for instance, the water consumption. These systems need a lot of water to cool it down, especially if they are put in areas of the world which are not freezing cold like where I'm living now in Sweden. So water is also a problem. And there are studies like the one we show here with this small image, in which it says that by next year, by 2027, AI systems will consume the same time. This, I believe, are AI systems in Denmark, the flags there, will consume 6 times the amount of water that it's needed for the households in Denmark. So it's a huge amount of water. Most countries in the world don't have this amount of water. But another one no one is talking about, so people are talking about energy, and we are seeing the concerns about the rising of energy costs on data centers and AI centers. We are also understanding more and more the costs in terms of water, in terms of raw materials, in terms of hard metals and so on. But another one is the financial cost. Money that we are putting into building AI centers is money that is not put somewhere else. Again, this is a political choice. It's a choice that governments, that companies, that institutions are making. And how are we going to decide what matters, what doesn't matter? How much money is it worth to invest in these data centers? These are questions that are not, again, like I say, not computer science questions, but they are questions that will fundamentally shape the way we develop this type of systems. And again, in the other way around, the way we develop this type of systems is shaping the choices we need to make. And it is not inevitable to build AI the way we are building it now. There are many other approaches, not all of them necessarily requiring all this type of amounts of energy or amounts of computational power or even amounts of data like that. So we make the choices also as computer scientists. If we don't know the impact, we don't really know how to make these choices. And finally, the power of the algorithms, the bigger and bigger algorithms that we are building, which come with all the benefits, of course, but also at the same time, all the problems in terms of bias, in terms of exclusion, in terms of discrimination, which of course has to do with the data that we have, but also the way we build algorithms. And more, we are seeing that these algorithms are impacting people. We can hardly open a newspaper nowadays without seeing someone concerned about some type of impact that AI might be having in jobs, in quality of life, in access to subsidies, access to education, access to health, decision-making algorithms, the impact of robots, the impact of AI in terms of what's the word? How it uses the data and the results of writing and the intellectual property of this type of systems. We are seeing that again and again. And by doing that doesn't mean that AI is responsible. We never can think about a piece of software, a piece of hardware being responsible for anything. The impact of AI means that we people are responsible. And we need to understand what is this responsibility. And it starts by understanding that, first, AI is not intelligent, and it's also not really artificial. It is not intelligence in the way that we talk about each one of us, other people being intelligent. It's a very smart and very able type of cognitive or approximation to cognition, but it's still very, very bad in terms of other types of intelligence, spatial intelligence, human intelligence, social intelligence. All these type of systems are quite different from what we talk of each other as being intelligent. In a sense, the systems that we are using nowadays, the LLMs, the large language models, are the equivalent to the Frankenstein monster of language. We put all types of language, all types of texts together. It creates something that looks like a person, at least somehow. We interact with it like we would be interacting with people, but these systems are incapable of distinguish what is right, what is wrong, even incapable to distinguish what is true and what is false. It is not how these systems are built to be doing, and are of course not able to take or to handle moral or ethical thinking. So they look and they act and they behave like people might do, but the way they are built and the capabilities that they have to really deal with the results of their deliberations are very, very different than what we people do. So they are very different intelligent from what we are. Not that they are more intelligent than us or that we are more intelligent. That kind of discussion is kind of moot, doesn't really matter. They are very different. I also don't compare myself with my car in terms of speed. It doesn't make sense. I don't compare an airplane with a bird, even if both fly. They do it in different ways. Both of them are necessary, both of them are useful, but they are very different. And again, like I just showed in the previous slides, AI is not really artificial. It's not artificial because it cannot exist without the huge amount of manual and human labor that goes into it, from those that curate and manage and collect the data, to those that take care of all the mistakes and all the errors, all the potential dangerous outputs of this type of systems, and of course those that build and develop this type of systems. So without the labor of people, AI doesn't exist. So its artificiality is limited, but also because it uses all this type of natural resources. So the fact that the systems we are working with nowadays are very good at manipulating language is by no means can be seen as a proxy to intelligence. Is a gimmick at most. So when we talk about AI, we have to start thinking about what do we need to care about to do it responsibly. So why should we care about responsible AI? It starts by the issue of data or datification. Reality is always more than the data that we have. Data is always a selection, a choice that we make, that someone makes about what is relevant in a given situation, what can be measured, what do we want to measure, and what we can measure. So data is not at all the same as reality. AI, the only way AI systems have to interact with the world is through the data that we have. But data, like AI systems, is also constructed. You cannot pick up data from the air. Data is always a constructing thing, something that we construct by measuring, that we constructing by collecting, that we constructing by selecting, but it's always a constructed thing. And by being by being something that we do, it comes with choices. What are we selecting? What are we not selecting? Probably if someone is collecting data about us in this room today, very few of us will think about collecting data about the color of our socks, which means that we are somehow discriminating against color of socks. If someone later on in a couple of years wants to use data about color of socks, they will have a problem because we never collect that data. And therefore, data is by definition biased. We can, of course, and we should make our best and work in terms of unbiased or taking care of that data. The bias existing in data is not affecting or negatively affecting disproportionately some groups and not others, but by definition, data is always biased. By focusing too much on data, we are actually kind of forgetting what this data is about, which is about having information, knowledge, or wisdom about a specific situation. So data is not the wisdom that we can gain from this data. And if we really stay at the level of the data points, we never really get to a situation in which we really are ensuring that it's not the data points themselves that matter, but the insights that we can get, the wisdom that we can get about the situation based on this data. Another issue we need to take care about, or we need to consider, is the issue of power. Who is developing AI? Why is AI being developed nowadays? And who is taking these decisions? Most of it is very far from any one of us here in Nepal, or in Europe, or in everywhere in the world. It is a very small group of people with a very small or a very limited understanding of the world as it is that are making these decisions. These decisions are also mostly not being made in any democratically scrutable way. We cannot question them and enter a discussion about why are you doing this like this or why not like that. It's very much dominated and led and guided by financial and economic factors. So who is deciding why, which values, which kind of considerations are going into these decisions is something which we do need to start thinking about. It's also important to realize that those that are wielding, and unfortunately those we are sitting in this room, we are not an equal distribution of the world as the world is. Still today, most of the researchers in AI conference, most of those publishing in AI are men and not women. 80% of the professors in the AI fields are male. And in the workforce, there is also a very skewed distribution in terms of the ethnicity of those working in those very large companies. So again, here, and it's nothing against male or female or different ethnicities, but it's just stating a fact. And if we only take a specific set or a specific type of developers, we are by definition not including everybody. And the systems we are building are not really representing everybody. And finally, and I think I already talked about the distribution or the sustainable costs, but it's not just about the water, it's not just about electricity, it's not just about the money. There are also serious social and human costs that we are taking for granted every time we ask ChatGPT or Gemini a question. There is all these digital sweatshops which are there, people working day and night, and probably here in Nepal as well. The photo in it's a very dark photo, but the photo there in the middle is made in India. But maybe here in Nepal as well, there are people that day and night are working to make sure that as every time we have a fun interaction with ChatGPT or Gemini, just because we are bored, we are first having a system that works, that runs, that answers quickly, but also that doesn't answer with completely outrageous or dangerous or immoral type of answers. So all of that is done by people that are at this moment somewhere, probably not very far from where we are sitting now, working for that. And the ones who are sitting at the tables, they are working. The other ones are probably sleeping under the table or to the back because they just replace each other continuously throughout the day. So the human and the social costs of AI are huge, are not being measured, and they are not really being considered as part of the boom that we are trying to make ourselves believe that we are on. Without them, no AI for any of us. So how can we be responsible? Who is responsible? What does it mean to be responsible? And how can each one of us be responsible for anything? And by the way, I'm talking too much and I always talk a lot. If you have any questions at any moment, just wave to me or shout or something. I'm happy to take questions at any time. And that also maybe I will ask questions to you every now and then, just to make sure that everybody is awake. Good. So how can we be responsible? First, AI, like any technology, is not neutral. It comes with the choices that we make. So when we talk about governing AI or when we talk about responsible AI or ethical AI, it's not about AI itself, it's about ourselves. It's about how we govern ourselves, how we want to govern these systems, who is going to govern, under what kind of rules, what type of responsibility each one of us has, and so on. And this field, the field of responsible AI, is something that 15 years ago didn't exist. People were working on AI, developing 15 years ago. People were working a lot on neural networks, on image recognition, on pattern recognition. No one was really thinking about AI ethics, except for a couple of lost souls like myself who were asking for this type of questions. So the early focus, so just a very little overview of the history, if you want to call it, of the field of responsible AI. It started by a focus on, at the beginning, we were concerned about the technical performance of these systems. They should work. If they don't work, we don't need to be worried about the impact of them because they have no impact at all. They don't do nothing. They just sit there and we are trying to make them to work. So the focus at the beginning was efficiency, was performance, and so on. But from quite early on already, from the perspective mostly of the academic community, there started to be a recognition of issues and risks like bias, because the data was biased, about discrimination, about breaching privacy, because we were using data that not always would be necessarily taking care of privacy issues, and also more and more the concerning about the lack of accountability. And this was very much something which was starting from mostly the data science, the computer science, the STEM community. Because of this kind of issues, we start realizing that actually as STEM experts, we don't really know enough about how to deal with this impact. So the shift moved to the issues of ethics. And then there were more and more calls and requests for making sure that systems are fair, are transparent, have some human oversight, have explainability, and so on. And that's when, outside of the technical community, if you want, more and more people were starting to come and to start understanding from the perspective of humanities, social science, and so on, what could be done to support the development of this type of tools that would measure or would guarantee some type of accountability or some type of recognition for ethical principles. A bit later, and not very long ago, the idea was it's very nice to talk about this broad ethical issues, but at the end of the day, we need to move from the principles to something which is practical, by embedding ethics in design, by ensuring that the deployment and use of AI systems would be ethical and responsible. As we developed that and understanding that there was very little ways to measure or to demand any type of responsibility, then it came the work and the contribution of large organizations, both technical professional organizations like the ACM or the IEEE, but more and more also political organizations like the European Union or the United Nations or UNESCO or the Council of Europe or the Asian group or the African Union. All of them start realizing, as a political international organization, we need to have something to say, something to demand from this type of systems. And how this governance is done is very different, and I will move to that in a bit, from one place to another, but the idea that somehow there needs to be some political guidance to what are these systems doing and how is it happening, it is becoming more and more understanding. So the momentum growth in terms of developing AI ethics guidelines. There is no organization in the world today that has not worked on some AI ethics guidelines. There comes with also the efforts at regulation and also more and more work across different sectors. Like I say, the political aspects came up. Just as I'm not going in details, this is more or less an overview of what I just said. But as you see, moving towards today, we are getting more and more types of approaches, types of possibilities working towards the development of this type of systems. And once they start, they kind of continue. It's not like they stop there in the middle. It's just, I just put there the first moment in which those kind of issues became a reality. Anyway, so it is a field, it is a global concern, it is an effort that is ongoing, with peaks, with ups and downs, like AI itself, but it's something which cannot be ignored no longer, which sometime here, 12 years ago, it was quite different. So responsible about what? What does it mean to be responsible about AI or on AI? First, AI doesn't happen to us. There is an ongoing narrative, a very purposeful narrative that wants us, and I mean by us, the people in the street, everybody in the world, to believe that AI is something like the weather. It happens. We don't really control the weather. We don't really know why is it going to rain or snow or be nice weather to go swim. It just happens to us. The only thing we can do towards the weather is protect ourselves by acting on the predictions that are made about the weather. AI is not the weather. AI is something that we build, people build, organizations build, institutions build. So we cannot say that AI happens. The only thing we know and we are sure about is that we, people, make it possible that AI happens. AI is designed, is constructed by us. Even, yes, in the future, when potentially AI is going to rebuild and recreate itself, it is always an artifact, something that is created by human capabilities. So if we are designing these systems, we have all the choices that we want. We are making the choices how these systems look like, how do they don't look like, what is efficient, what is not efficient, how do we measure efficiency, what kind of issues are we concerned about, is it making the system accurate, what does that mean, and how much are we willing to put on, invest on accuracy, and today, at the end of the day, we'll discuss that with some assignments. So we need to think about who should be deciding. Is that the large corporations which build these systems, dump them in the world and hope for the best, or they don't hope, maybe they just want to do something? Who is deciding what kind of values need to be considered? Is efficiency the only value? Is return on investment the only value? Or do we need to have other values? And when we have more than one value, how are we going to prioritize? Is it more important to be accurate or to be explainable? What if we cannot do both? How are we choosing? If we have a limited amount of time and money to build these systems, are we going to invest on making a system that is as fair as possible? Or are we going to invest on a system that is as accurate as possible? And these two things have been proven that they are not necessarily aligned. So how are we prioritizing? Who is going to make these priorities? And maybe even more important from a development perspective, how are we going to measure these priorities? How are we going to measure that and to verify that the system is indeed accurate or fair or aligned with human values or whatever else? Being responsible about AI starts also with what we call the question zero. And that is a very simple question to ask, is very hard to answer. Is the question about, is AI really the best option for whatever problem we are trying to solve? Are there alternatives? What do we gain by implementing an AI system? What do we lose by implementing this AI system? These are the questions that most companies and most organizations at this moment are not really asking. Most of the work that is being done in AI in the public sphere, in the open sphere, in the world, is, if I may say, much more led by a fear of missing out. Everybody else is using AI. I need to use AI. I was in a meeting with ministers from the Nordic countries, so Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, and all that stuff there in the north of Europe. And all these ministers of digitalization, ministers of economic affairs and whatever else, they were coming to the podium like I'm here, and one would say, in my country by 2027, 92% of the public sector will be using AI. And then the next one would come, no, in my country by 2026, 95% will be using AI. And then I asked them, why? And they wanted to, I think they wanted to get me rid of me, to kick me out of the room. But no one was able to come with a quick and direct answer. Why do we want to do this? Yeah, because AI is the only thing. We need to do AI. Everybody is doing it, and AI is really going to solve our problems. And then again I ask, you know what problems you have? We know what kind of problems AI can solve? And this is, I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating at this moment, But these discussions are discussions that are not happening. And if you think about your own countries, you will see the same type of thing. Everybody is rushing, either governments or private organizations, rushing to use AI, but it's just because we've got to believe that this is the only thing to do. So asking question zero, why, is a very hard one. Also, it is important to realize that AI itself, the AI system, is a piece of software. It's not more, not less than a piece of software. It doesn't exist in itself. It doesn't exist outside of a social technical context in which there are people, organizations, governments, users, developers, operators, whatever else you name it. They are all there in this social technical ecosystem around the piece of software that we call AI. When we talk about responsible AI, we are not talking about the responsibility of that piece of software. We are talking about the responsibility of this social technical ecosystem. When we talk about ethics, when we talk about regulation, governance, and so on, it concerns the ecosystem. AI doesn't care if we fine it, if we kill it, if we put it in prison. Is not type of issues that we can, or that we award it or give it a prize or something like that. Those are not things that we can apply to a piece of software. Those are things that we can apply to a group, a society, individual, humans. It is also important to realize that as technology in itself, it can never, and it has been proved again and again for any other technology, the ill effects, the problems that the technology causes can never really be solved by the technology itself. So the idea that we just have to build better AI and that AI will, by a miracle, become responsible and ethical and so on, it's not really realistic. AI itself doesn't really have the abilities, the technology itself, to really fix the issues that are fundamentally, societally, and deeply human. So responsible AI solutions or responsible AI approaches need to be much more focusing on the social than on the technical. And because we are building this type of systems, we need to stop asking questions like, what is AI? It doesn't matter. The question that we need to ask is, what do we want AI to be? We are building it. And if we are building, we have the choices, we have the tools, we have the capabilities to decide what do we want these systems to be. And then we have again a whole amount of questions, and you will notice that my presentation has a lot of questions and maybe not too many answers, but I just want really to make you think about all these type of issues. One of the questions, one of the issues that comes back again and again about AI is, do we want it to be human-like? First, what do we mean by being human-like? Is looking like me, like you, like the average human? Is there an average human that we can talk about? And why do we want AI to be human-like? What are we achieving by this likeliness that we would not achieve by other ways? So if we are building, if we are the creators of these systems, we need to think about these questions, these answers, these issues. If you are in the field of responsible AI, people will very quickly tell you, no, not at all. We don't want AI to be human-like in any way. No faces, no voices, no robot looking like people. No, that's awful. We don't really want that. We want AI to be a tool. Great. So the question is, we want AI to be tools. But if it's a tool and we are building this tool, we need to ask ourselves, what is this tool going to do? And who is going to benefit from this tool? I'm left-handed. Yeah, I cannot use scissors in the same way that right-handed people use the scissors. So even a very simple tool like a scissors comes with benefits for a lot of people, but it doesn't really is useful for everybody. So if we are building tools, and maybe indeed it's better to think about AI as a tool than as a human proxy, we need to start thinking about what is this tool going to do, who is going to benefit from this tool, who is going to have access to this tool. Then, like I say, I'm very old, I've been in the field for a long time, At the beginning of the field, even before I started in the 50s and the 60s, the issue of AI was a field of science in which people tried to understand human intelligence by building models of parts of what we understood as being human intelligence. So in a sense, AI started as a simulation, as something, a tool that would help scientists understanding intelligence. It is also, if you go back to the original definitions of AI, this is what you get. A definition, AI is a system, an artificial system that it's built to replicate, to simulate some type of feature of human intelligence so that we can then understand that feature better. But nowadays, we are not really using AI as simulations, although Frank is going to talk about AI as simulation. But our interactions with ChatGPT, our interactions with this type of LLMs and generative AI is not anymore a simulation, but these systems are really having direct operation impact in the world. They are deciding who gets access to healthcare and who don't. They are deciding how to navigate through Kathmandu through the GPS that we have, and where do we go, where we don't go. They are deciding who is getting credit and who not. They are deciding who is getting the job or who not. So those things are not simulations anymore. So do we need to ask the questions, do we want to build AI as a simulation, as a way to understand intelligence? Or do we want to build AI as a system that has an active and direct intervention in the world and in our lives? What is good for a simulation? And there are many, many fields and many, many reasons to build simulations, but they have a different purpose than a system that has a direct operation in the world. So are we building simulations, or are we building operating and active systems? And finally, maybe the most important of all, are we building AI to be descriptive or to be normative? And by this I mean, are we building these systems to do as what it is, what is in the data, or do we want these systems to be better than the data, to be better than us? And if we want them to be better, who is going to say what is better? Who is going to decide that? If we want them to be descriptive, to just do as exactly as we have collected in the data, then we cannot expect these systems to be free of prejudices, be free of bias, be free of discrimination, because that's what is in the data. So who is going to decide whether we want a system to be normative, and then what are the norms, what is right and what is wrong, or who is deciding, now we are using systems to describe and to see the world exactly as it is on the data. And I could go on with this type of questions much more, but these are the questions that we need to answer before we even start building any line of code or any type of AI system, before we start thinking about accuracy or robustness or any other type of property of these systems. Good, and then we are going to use these systems. We answer all these questions and we know exactly what it is about. We are sure that we want it to be a tool and it's going to be used for this or that there is a clear why we want to use it. But then what kind of systems and how are these systems going to work? Which type of decisions should the AI system be making? Decisions that help us navigate our own plans and our own intentions, or systems that are going to tell us what is our plan and what is our intention? Are we going to build systems that benefit each one of us individually, or are we going to build systems that benefit the society or the group or the community? What is good for me is not necessarily what is good for the group. What is good for each one of us is not necessarily what is good for all of us together. So who is going to decide what type of decisions AI should be making? And also, how should AI be taking these decisions? We tell all the time again, we want the systems to be ethical. Great. First, no one really knows which ethics we are going to use, but also, as this space here tries to illustrate, being ethical doesn't necessarily mean that you are also being legal. And even more, if you are being ethical and legal, is not necessarily what we as society want to be. And you only have to think a bit in the past, in other types of situations. What is legal in Europe might be illegal in Nepal. What is illegal in Nepal might be illegal in China or in the United States. What was legal 50 years ago, we would be smoking in this room, is illegal now. It is also not really acceptable anymore. Even if it was not illegal to smoke in the room, mostly we would probably not feel doing it because it's not what is acceptable by society. So these things change. And as they change, what is right, let's say, is a different point in this space. If we want AI systems to be ethical, but also legal, and also doing what is acceptable for us, where in this space we are going to put it. Also knowing that this changes from one to another place, from one to another time. And we want, and I will show it soon in terms of what all these guidelines and principles talk about, we want AI to be everything. It should be explainable and accurate and fair and sustainable and aligned with human dignity and responsible. I don't know, you name it, we want AI to be that all. But we cannot have it all, especially if there are limits in time and in the resources that we have. So who is going to make the choices on how these decisions need to be taken? What kind of priorities we are going to put there, and so on. And this all, how am I in time?
Yeah, I think we still have 30 minutes.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. Any questions so far? Any comments? No? Yes. Is there any water, by the way? If anyone can find water? Yes, go on with your question.
You're saying everyone is rushing to use AI. Everyone is rushing to use AI.
Sorry, everyone is?
Rushing,
yes, yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
And rather than it is a problem, I think it is an opportunity for our part of the world to get started on it, because I think it gives the equal level playing platform for developing technology and competing with the Western world.
Yeah, definitely. A very good question, and thank you for that point. Indeed, at this moment, we are all around the world more or less at the same position. It is an opportunity for all different parts of the world to really be able to take the steps forward in technology, in digitalization, in development of the different parts of the world. And AI can definitely help us doing that. But it will only help us doing that if we are aware of how are we going to use AI, what kind of impact AI will have in the positive and in the negative sense, and that we are asking again I call the question zero. Why do we want to use AI? I'm not saying that the answer to this question is no, we don't want to use AI. I think the answer should be yes, we want to use AI, but we want to be very sure that we are using AI in the way that benefits your country, your region, your company, your persons, and so on. And what benefits someone here is not necessarily what benefits someone elsewhere. You got me some water. Thank you so much. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
But indeed, we need to be aware that it's an opportunity to all of us, but it's in a sense a sword with a double-edged sword. If we cut it in the right way, we all will benefit. but if we do it in the wrong way, then we are just creating an even more unequal world. And then that's maybe a good way to move to the next part. We cannot do this, and like I have been saying from the beginning, only from the perspective of what is the best technology that we can build. To know what is best, we need to look at AI as a multidisciplinary field, a field in which we take many different disciplines in order to understand, to critique, to ask the questions, to see what the intended and unintended positive and negative impacts. And only when we have this broader view about what AI can and cannot do, we really can be confident that we are using AI in the way that benefits the issues at hand. And those issues are different everywhere. So question zero, the question of building this system, is about what is the purpose for which we are using AI? What are the societal benefits and what are the potential harms? It's about the responsibility. It's not just about, is it feasible? Is it possible to build the system technically? Is it possible or is it economically viable to build this system? That is not just a responsibility. We need to go much further than those type of questions. We need to do it also from a preventing way, to prioritize the resource allocation for things that are socially valuable and not just for things that are economically gaining for some of us. And to do that, we need to do it in a participatory way. So as we make these decisions, as we make these choices, like in any other type of technology, any other type of product, we need to, like I said already before, it involves a lot of political choice. And these choices are including in the formulation, how do we describe the problem that we are building? What type of information do we have about the problem that we are describing? Who is involved, who is really caring and has a legitimate right and impact on what is doing? And moreover, how are we aggregating the opinion of many of us? And if you are wondering what the issues are about, the pictures I have there, this one is a very famous value-based decision in which the bridge was purposefully built very low, such that big buses could not go under the bridge. They could not reach the beach, which meant that the beach became a place for rich people who could go by car and not by bus to go there. This is in New York, in Brooklyn, somewhere there. This bench here, it's built in many cities of the world, and it's not just because it's comfortable for you to sit, it's meant to not allow homeless people to sleep on the bench. And the tomatoes there, it's also machines that are more and more used in industrialized production of tomatoes, which is making that the races of tomatoes that are viable are the ones that can be picked up by the machine, so are very hard and strong types of tomatoes, and all the soft, squishy types of tomatoes are not really being built, at least in Europe or in places where they use the machines. So the choices that we make in this type of systems, like the choices that we're making in AI, are going to proportionate some things, but are going to make other ones impossible. So that's where governance comes. And I could go talk a lot about governance, and I will, but I want just to start by the fact that governance is not just a question, is a requirement. We cannot do it without governance. We all drive in cars because we know that these cars have brakes. In most countries, maybe not here, at least the ones I have seen, we know that the cars have seat belts, and also we know that cars have all this type of security measures. If we knew that the car had no brakes, that the car was being driven by someone without driver's license in the road, without no traffic signs and no traffic rules at all, the way we would use the car would be completely different than how we use cars nowadays. If there are no rules, no one can really profit from the technology that we have. So governance is not just a wishful thinking, something that you think after everything else is done, but it's really the basis in which we can build and we can innovate. If we don't really have rules, we also don't really know whether our innovations are going in the right useful direction, or if we are just wasting our time and our money. So there is a lot of work and a lot of organizations. Like I said, there are no organizations that have not come yet with work on AI guidelines, AI principles, and so on. And here I just list a couple of them in which I have been directly involved. So maybe if I had not been doing so many of these things, they will be less than the 1,000 that I are nowadays, but there are a lot of them. All of them, they say more or less the same thing. It takes a long time to write these things, it takes a lot of discussion to have everybody aligned with it, but at the end, the result is very much the same. We are saying that AI should be sustainable, should be aligned with human principles, should have human oversight, should be transparent, should be explainable, and so on. The principles at the end of the day are more or less the same. And they are more or less the same. Why? Because at least those are aligned with what we as humans agree that it's beneficial for us, aligned for a large part what the Fundamental Declaration of Human Rights says, but also because there are very abstract types of things. Yes, we all want a system that is aligned with human dignity, or a system that is responsible. Yeah, no one would say, no, I'm voting for the irresponsible system. We all agree with this kind of things. And we agree with them because they are very abstract. We don't really are making any commitment at that moment when we write these things to how are we going to implement it. And that's where then things become difficult. It's very easy to say, yes, I want my system to be ensuring human dignity or being responsible. But if I give these requirements to the engineer that it's building the system, how do I know that my system is aligned with human dignity? How am I going to verify that property in the system? So the level between the principles and operation is very big. But at the same time, responsible AI is really becoming a huge business. There is no consultants company in the world that is not going to sell you some type of responsible AI. Don't worry, we come, you pay us money, and we will sell you something that it's responsible. And it is all over the world, and both in the politics, in the governments, in the public sector, as well as in the private sector. The United Nations, where I have been working for the last 2 years, the idea is not so much to come with the principles, but to come with the governance ways or mechanisms that make it possible to have principles, to have some common understanding of what AI is, what principles are, which kind of principles we want to agree with, to have some kind of common ground on agreeing that there are some standards that we can exchange with each other, and also agreeing that there is a need to create common benefits for everybody, to create capacity building, to have some fund for countries that don't have the possibilities to develop AI to their own ways, and to create some type of shared data framework such that we can share data. I'm going to move these ones. This is all about the AI functions that came in the United Nations. We did that, it finished by the end of 2024. During last year, what was achieved at global level at United Nations was agreement on creation of a global scientific panel, which will support the United Nations on developing the terms, the common understanding of what is being to be done. It is agreed, the terms of reference and the modalities have been finished, and the panel is at this moment being established. And there is also an agreement on creating a global dialogue, which will come together every year, a bit like the IPCC for climate, to discuss what have been achieved in AI this year and how do we as United Nations need to look at the issues. So at the end of the day, responsible AI is very much about safeguarding democracy, making sure that in whatever you understand democracy, that there is some type of regulation and oversight that is not just directed by the economic interests of some, that promotes the participation of everybody and different types of groups and collectives, and also that enhances and supports digital literacy. If we don't know what we are doing with these systems, we cannot expect that people are going to use them in any proper way. So we need to know and to make sure that everybody has a little bit of an understanding what AI can do, what AI cannot do, what can we expect from interaction with a large language model, what can we expect from other types of AI. And at the same time, we need to make sure that we are also safeguarding the planet, that we are looking at sustainable production and consumption of these AI systems, that we are ensuring equitable access to all of us to the types of tools and technologies that are there, and that supports bigger and greater societal cohesion and will trust and provide access, and not the other way around, in which it will break the world even more than what it is. So to move from all this type of wonderful words and titles, we need to move from the principles to the concretization of that. And that can be done in many different ways. It can be done by regulation, which the European Union has done with the AI Act, really make laws about how can you use AI, when can you use AI, and what are the conditions for the data and output of these systems. But we can also do it, for instance, through developing standards. And there are many organizations like ISO or the IEEE which are developing standards that enable, it's not mandatory like a law, but it enables due diligence. You can say, I'm following the standard, therefore I'm doing things in the best way that I can. But also because we are all following the standards, becomes much more easy to integrate different services and products. Another way to look at it is a much more management or organizational way, and that is by developing the organization structures or the procedures within an organization that enables to establish some type of procedures and principles within the organization. For instance, these advisory bodies or ethics officers, which are setting and monitoring how the organization is doing. There is a lot of work also being done in terms of developing some tools that support the measurement or the assessment of trust and responsibility in AI, understanding that it's not just a kind of a checkbox kind of thing. And like I already said, it's very important to work on education and training. I'm going to move these ones. The kind of things that we are seeing with ethical or responsible AI in real life, and to understand that ethics, we talk about ethical AI, but it's actually much more difficult than what we think that we can create one size fits all way. So when we talk about fairness, just two types of examples. What would be fair in terms of providing child support subsidies in a country? Should we give the same amount of subsidy to every parent in the country or every child in the country? Or should we do it giving more money to those people who need more, so the ones who earn less themselves, and give less money from the ones who are rich already and they don't really need it? So do we want an equitable or an equal approach to child subsidies? In most countries, and in most of you probably would say, we should do it in a way that those that need most get more, and not give everybody and the very rich ones child subsidies when they don't need it. But when we talk about parental leave, it doesn't really matter whether you earn a lot or you earn little. We think that in most cases that equal access to parental leave should be possible for everybody and not just for some of them. So we understand fairness in child support subsidy as equity, and we understand fairness in parental leave in terms of equality. So the ethics here, we are talking about the same principle, but the way we operationalize it is quite different. Another example, for instance, safety in the road. We can do it by put speed sensors in the roads, measuring who is going to speed and then send them a fine home. Or we can ensure safety in the road if we really create a good understanding and we teach children how to be safe in the road. The one about the speed sensors, you can get it right away, so it's a very short-term type of solution. The one in which we teach people to understand what is safety in the road is much more long-term. Again, here, the way we do ethics is different depending on what we care more about the short-term or about the long-term. So again, the one is based on what we are doing, and then we decide on the ethics. This one is more, we decide first on the ethical aspect, and then we see what we are going to do. And again, this is just examples to show that if we are really talking about AI ethics, we need first to understand very much what ethics is about and how the ethics is never a one-size-fits-all. If there is not one ethics and not one size and one way to do it, how can we decide what to use? Mostly what the field says is not about the decision, the ethical decision itself is much more about the way we are developing the systems, to be transparent about the way and the process by which this type of decisions are being taken. And again, the issue of the trade-offs, if we cannot have it all, how we are going to decide. We are going to do that as an exercise later today. Responsible AI is much more than just about the ethics. It's not like trying to implement something that solves ethics. It's also not staying forever in the philosophical discussion of what is ethics. But at the end of the day, it's more about a way of doing things, a way in which we make explicit and open which kind of values were considered in the development of a certain system, how are those values being interpreted in terms of the norms that the system should adhere to, and how are we concretizing these norms in terms of the functionalities of the systems. This is something which can be done across the whole life cycle of development of the AI system. I'm not really going again into details. I'm happy to discuss that in a break. But there are increasingly different types of tools to do this, to decide and to support the inclusion of responsible AI approaches across the whole life cycle. For instance, there are short readiness assessments, so answering question 0, there are templates for that. There are checklists for all the different principles that have been identified. There are ways to, for instance, log in the complaints that have been made about the system, the way that the system has been changed to address those complaints. There are ways to summarize or to describe in a standard way what the system is doing, so these model cards. And there are also like what they call the ethical trade-off logs. So how have we included and recording the choices and the trade-offs that have been made throughout the development and use of the system. There are different ways to measure the readiness of the system in terms of and the readiness of an organization to be responsible. And these are, again, many different ways to do that. It's not just, you're not ready all in the same way, depending on the situation, depending on the context. There are different ways to look at the readiness. I had a small part on agentic AI, which is what is coming now. I will go quick through it because I believe that I should stop around 10:30.
So you still have 10 minutes?
10 minutes. Okay, so I can just go a little bit. So, as you probably all have heard, agentic AI is being sold to us nowadays as being the next big thing on AI. The first question or the first impression that comes for people like me or Frank or many others that have been working in the field of AI agents for many decades is, are we not really reinventing the wheel, calling it agentic when before has been talking about agents? The whole agentic AI is very much developed in isolation from the foundational work that has been done in the autonomous agents and multi-agent systems community. And it overlooks a lot of the theories, a lot of the architectures, a lot of the lessons learned in the AMAS community, the autonomous agents and multi-agents communities, which have looked at a lot of the issues and the problems that are not even yet being discussed when we talk about agentic AI. From the perspective of responsible AI, maybe agentic AI is a really bad idea, because all these agents will have potentially misaligned objectives. They will have some ways to converge their behaviors without really taking ethical and responsibility into account. They are built to seek for power and to optimize in all types of different ways. We are potentially or directly lose human control over the way these systems are developed. They are developed at this moment under a huge competitive pressure to be the first one to come up with agents, and because they are not really looking at what has been done in the field before, there is a huge lack of theoretical understanding of what these systems are about. The point is, and I'm not really saying it potentially is a really bad idea, but at the other end, we can look at AI agents or agentic AI in a way that really can support a development of a better type of AI. Not building these agents to go roam the internet to do the best for you and to do deals and to create deals and so on, but to look at AI from a less monolithic, less brittle and less opaque way to develop systems. So nowadays, how we build these AI systems is to create a huge mountain of data with a huge algorithm on top of it, and that will solve all the problems of the world. Also in computing, we really moved forward the moment that we were able to somehow break down this type of monoliths. So what I'm trying to say is that agentic AI can be a huge benefit to start looking at the designs and the architectures for these systems from a much more modular, interoperable and much more compositional alternative to what we are doing today. Then we can start building different modules, interoperable components. We can define different types of goals, different types of norms, different types of protocols, and we can use what has been learned in the multi-agents community in terms of supporting the integration of many different heterogeneous types of models and reasoning types and put them in together. So agentic AI could be, if we really look at it from that way, as a way to get responsible AI design by separating concerns, so not a monolith, by enabling scalability and adaptability, by improve the verification and governance, because we can do that at the level of the different modules. And finally, the idea is that what we have today, how we build these systems, is like when you play with plasticine. We put everything together and all these colors, and at the end of the day, the only thing you have is a big blurb of formless, shapeless, and colorless type of thing. No one really understands anymore what went into this ball of plasticine. Maybe we need to look at the development of AI using an agent perspective, much more like a compositional or a Lego type of architecture. Modular, layered, hybrid, bounded, and heterogeneous. Really making sure that we enable the transparency and flexibility, because we make that for each module. We can separate different concepts and different levels of participation, because we are not doing everything at the same time. Therefore, the systems will be much more robust and will have much more relevance in specific contexts, because we can reuse or select the pieces that are more relevant for a specific context. We can achieve alignment and accountability and prevent overreach much better, because we can design each of these small modules independently. And because they are independently designed, we also support heterogeneous approaches. Not everything needs to be done in the same way, not everything needs to be done together, but we can make different specialized types of knowledge to support interdisciplinary collaboration, to support the participation of many different groups, many different countries, many different backgrounds, because each one of us can build these modules in their own way. There is a lot to be done still, even if this idea is becoming more and more interesting. There is a lot to be done in terms of how can we support learning in a distributed way, in a topic-specific way, adapting also to specific topics, in terms of the hybrid integration of modules, data, and reasoning, the complexity of putting it all together. The verification tools are not there, and the ways to govern and to verify these distributed things are not there yet. But at the same time, we also don't have the verification and the governance for the big monolith, so maybe it's time to try a different thing. So what's next? Probably we need to start looking at AI from a different paradigm, understanding that AI is not a universal solution to all our problems, that we need to recognize the limitations of any technology in addressing complex challenges, to understand that there are risks inherent to the AI systems that we are building today, and therefore we need to start looking at other ways to understand transparency and to accommodate different contexts and different values. We need to go beyond the discipline, so it's not just about technology developing systems and social science and humanity analyzing or criticizing these systems, but really going together, including and involving also different societal actors and not just the ones who can build it. And finally, really providing the technical standards that are not there yet. The challenges, I think I talked about it before, and I will finish with what would be a responsible AI approach to what we are doing. First, it starts by the commitment to be responsible, and that is something that we need to do ourselves and not the systems. To recognize that there are tensions between ethical principles and that we need to understand how to prioritize different ones. Create a culture of responsibility within an institution or an organization. We all are responsible in different ways, but we all need to contribute to the understanding and implementing a responsible AI approach to AI. And finally, prioritize the interaction with many different stakeholders and communicating with them. Innovation is not just about creating new technology. Innovation is also about creating different ways to understanding governance, to understanding the use of AI, to understanding the contexts of what AI is done, can be doing. It's about looking at the technical requirements, but also at the context, at the use that we need. And we can only do that by looking at innovation from the technological perspective, but also from the organizational, regulation, governance, and societal innovation. So in a sense, responsible AI is not a choice. Responsible AI and ethics is not against innovation, but it is the required stepping stones that we need for the innovation and for the acceptance of what type of systems that we are doing. Innovation is also not a race. There is no finish line in which we can measure who won or we don't won. We also need to explore much more than all running in the same direction. And we need to look at responsible AI as a way to build the trust, to drive the transformation, and to support the differentiation of different approaches to what we are doing. Thank you.